For joining us. I'm Amanda Devereaux. I'm in New Orleans. I'm the founder of Nola Nesting. We host 3 postpartum support groups a month and have worked with various groups and agencies and nonprofits to help do that. I'm also one of the program developers and trainers for Birth Boot Camp Doula. And I'm very proud of bringing my sort of platform of postpartum into Birth Boot Camp Doula and making that a part of that so that all doulas certified with Birth Boot Camp have at least some greater understanding of postpartum and the importance of it, and a launch pad for what they can do. So we have a few people here tonight. We're going to talk about starting a postpartum group in your community and what that means for you and how you could go about doing it. I'm going to go over a framework of what I've done, but of course something different might work in your community. So there's a lot of different ways to get this off the ground. So I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. Paula just went away. So let's see. Laurie, do you want to start?
Sure. Okay. I'm Laurie McGowan. I operate Adventures of Little, and I offer childbirth classes as well as birth doula services, and I'm certified with Birth Boot Camp for both.
Awesome. Thanks, Laurie.
Okay. Well, as you all know, I'm an instructor with Birth Boot Camp and also a birth doula. And actually, Paula and I both live in the same town. She's from Minnesota here, too. And so we are wanting to learn more about, starting some postpartum support because we desperately need it in our area.
To start out with, like, why you might host a group. So birth doulas, childbirth educators, any type of like birth worker that develops a relationship with a family, we're kind of at the forefront of this. We have a foot in the door and have a relationship with them that not anyone else has. Because the rest of the people, the professionals that would support them postpartum, they don't necessarily know them prenatally. So some women might have a history of anxiety or depression, and they may or may not have sought out professional support for that. So if they have sought out professional support, they might have someone, but that person may not necessarily have experience or knowledge, particularly in postpartum. So we are there. If you're a birth doula, you should be doing a postpartum visit. And in that postpartum visit, I challenge you really to do more than just hear their birth story, because certainly we need to do that and revisit that with them. But also we need to be keeping an eye out for things that might seem out of the realm of normal. And then I further challenge you to become so comfortable with the idea that a postpartum experience isn't the same for everybody, and that needing support postpartum is okay, so that you're so comfortable with it that you're comfortable talking to your clients about this prenatally in a way that is like as casual as talking to them about, you know, they're going to bleed postpartum. Because it's just a fact that sometimes postpartum is hard, and sometimes it's harder than other times. And so helping them understand what their resources are is important. So you can host a group in your community because it's actually been shown that mom-to-mom support is more effective than clinical therapy for postpartum. So this is super important. This is something that that you can do to really advance people's postpartum experience. If you're a birth doula, you can invite your clients, and if you're an instructor, you can invite your students. So you already have kind of a good platform for that. So why would a doula do this? So I've already kind of mentioned that. Give me 1 second. Okay. Why would a doula do this? Because we already have a foot in the door. Because we already have an understanding of this. We tend to be empathetic people that are drawn to this work as birth doulas anyway. And many of us are either mothers or have a greater understanding of motherhood because it's where we've chosen to work. So I want to bring up one of the questions that was posted already by Haley. She asked, is it within our scope? So I can't speak for every doula certifying agency's scope of practice, but I can say that definitely within Birth Boot Camp Doula, diagnosing a person with a postpartum mood disorder or perinatal mood or anxiety disorder, which is the most appropriate term, is definitely out of scope. We shouldn't be diagnosing. But is it within scope to talk about people with it, to talk about this with people, absolutely, we can talk with people about this and about their experiences, and help have a greater understanding of this. So is it within scope to host a group? Absolutely. A support group is not the same thing as a clinical therapy group, and that's a really important distinction to make. That hosting a clinical therapy group is a very different thing. It is absolutely out of scope. Hosting a support group is different. The groups that I host, we meet 3 times a month. We started out meeting once a month, and we found that just wasn't enough. It felt odd to meet and then to say, all right, guys, see you next month. So we decided that we were going to do this more frequently, so we did it twice a month, and then most recently we've added the 3rd time a month. I have consulted with people in other areas of the country that host postpartum groups. They do it from everything from every once a month to weekly, and with varying levels of success. It's really hard to get people to talk about postpartum. It's the reason we need to start talking about it more. It's a good reason to start a group, and people just are not sure what to expect, and so when you host a group, you really have to work hard to put the word out there. So my specific group has been successful for a few reasons I'm going to go over with you, to the degree that I think we've only had one meeting where like nobody showed. Most of the time we have at least one mom show, sometimes more, as many as like 7 or 8 I think one time. So it varies. For sure, and we've definitely had mothers who are having more severe postpartum experiences, and those are just having sort of like the normal, postpartum fatigue and difficulty breastfeeding or whatever's going on, because postpartum is never simple. Some other things: who hosts the group? So for me, within my group, we have doulas that host the group. There's 3 of us that work together. Kimberly Davis and Casey O'Keefe are both in New Orleans and host the group with me, and they've been instrumental in brainstorming and figuring out how best to do this. And so the 3 of us rotate hosting the group, and that's part of our sustainability in doing this, because we don't charge for the group. You certainly could, but when this is something that already people have a difficult time understanding why they would come anyhow, charging for it is certainly not going to increase attendance. So we do this for free, and we take turns hosting it. As birth doulas, we host for each other if one of us is out of birth. So we don't cancel meetings. We worked really hard to not cancel meetings. I think a couple times we've considered canceling a meeting because of bad weather, and we quickly figured out it's a terrible idea, because the meeting that we were considering canceling, 7 moms showed up. So that would have been 7 people that were standing outside reading a sign on the door that said it was canceled. This needs to be very reliable, so that they know that if they're having a bad day, maybe they haven't come in 3 months, but they can come. So we host a group, but I've worked with a couple other groups that have made this successful. So the first thing that I did was I reached out to 2020 moms, which, let me see if I can share my camera with you. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. Okay, I think you can see my screen now. So let me see. Here we are. Okay, this is 2020 Mom. 2020 Mom is a grassroots effort out of California that is working to increase resources in the conversation about postpartum. And the idea being that the more we talk about this, the more moms talk about their experiences, the more normal it becomes. And it takes it out of the closets, out of the shadows, that it's okay for a mom to say, you know what, I'm having a difficult time. This isn't going well. I don't feel great. So there's different things you can look at here. One of my favorite things is their webinars. So you can actually click on this, and you can see that they have webinars that you can be a part of. I'm going to come back to their training in just a little bit. They have one of the things that they do is reach out to hospitals and insurance companies and healthcare providers to change how they handle this, and hoping for like insurance coverage and things like that. So this is part of the thing that they're working on. Okay, so you can explore this website some more. So I'm going to come back and let's see. I'm going to stop screen sharing. Okay, can one of you give me a thumbs up if you were able to see my screen? That worked? Sweet, thanks. Okay, super. So that's 2020 Mom. That's one of the places that I started because I wanted to align my group with an organization that was working hard to do something else, and then also get some resources from them. The next thing that I did was I was looking for healthcare providers in my area for to refer moms to. And hopefully you'll have already done this, but you should find mental health care professionals in your area. So you can look at the PSI website. Okay, so I'm going to screen share once more and pull this up. There we go. Okay, so here we are. Okay, this is Postpartum Support International's website. This is one of my favorite groups because their website is beautiful and easy to use. They have a warm line that you can find on here, help for families, help for professionals. But if you click on Get Help, you can then find help in your area. So right here, help in my area, there's a support map. You can also find a PSI regional coordinator. So if you don't see someone specifically in your area, you could contact your regional coordinator and see who they're working with. Because like one of the therapists that we work with, at the time that we developed a relationship with her, she wasn't listed on here as a provider because she was actually working towards it, and it was my regional coordinator that got her in touch with me. And so now she's been instrumental. So this is another place you can look for support and find a connection, because you need a bigger community than just you. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this. All right. So that's another place I really like. The PSI website's really good for that. Let's say, for example, that you were to look at PSI and you couldn't find anything. You can then find therapists in your area that are interested in working with women specifically, and you can then ask them to go to the 2020 Mom page, and they provide resources. They provide continuing education, so they can get continuing education hours and gain further understanding of the postpartum experience. And then I found that people are so receptive to this because they're eager to get their continuing education hours anyway, and if they're already interested in women's health, then this is a great way to do it. So many people, whether they're a nurse or a therapist or whatever, end up scrambling for continuing education and doing things that have nothing to do with them. So you have like labor and delivery nurses learning about like cardiac drugs. They're not pushing many cardiac drugs in labor and delivery typically, but they need their continuing education hours. And so people love it if you can be like, hey, this is happening in 2 months, and would you mind doing this? And I would love to refer patients to you. I'll add you to my Supporting Arms book, whatever. Okay, so that's one way to get support. Another thing that you can do is if you still are kind of running into dead ends, and when this is, I didn't work with them because I was running into dead ends, because they're amazing, but their Fussy Baby Network is a national group, and it's a nonprofit, and you can look to see if there's a Fussy Baby group in your area. And if there is, they have mental health care professionals working with them. And they will do, they'll do in-home visits. So they provide free in-home support for the first year, which is amazing. And there's no income qualifications or anything like that. I love the support that they provide, and they have their own grant funding. So for my group that meets 3 times a month, which we call the Nola Nesting 2020 Moms Postpartum Support Group, and we always use the tagline Mom to Mom Support, we have a person from Fussy Baby who attends every single one of our meetings. And it's really great because she's paid. She's paid through their grant. It's part of their outreach. So that's one of the things that's made this really work for us. We also find that other therapists that we work with are very willing to attend. I don't like to ask them to attend regularly because I can't pay them to do it. Because it's a free group, and I don't want them to feel the pressure that they have to regularly attend. So it works out that the person who does attend, Anna Brewer, that she is paid through her nonprofit. But if she can't, the other therapists are always eager to attend, and sometimes they attend anyway, just because it's good for them to stay in practice and have these conversations with women, and then also just to make themselves available. It makes a huge difference when a person has met face to face. So when one of the moms attending has met Anna or one of the other therapists that might come, and they say that, you know, they're available for further resources outside of the group, because the group, of course, is not therapy, they're more likely to make that contact because they know the person, they've laid eyes on them. The same as you, if you say, hey, I know this person who, you know, who's available to help you, here's a phone number, it's totally, now they're only separated by 1 degree. Instead of it being, you know, calling a random person on their insurance list. Now it's a person that you know, and so it makes it much more doable. So that's been really instrumental to us. Okay, so that's who's hosting the group. So for our group, just to recap, we meet 3 times a month, and there's always one of us there, a doula, and the other person there is a mental health care professional. So Fussy Baby, they work with infant mental health care. So if you're looking for another resource, you can look for an infant mental health care specialist in your area. Anyone who is interested in infant mental health care and is working in that arena also has a training with Postpartum, because they go together. Currently, there's a lot of funding for infant mental health care in the United States, so there's a lot of stuff going on with this. This is how Fussy Baby has their grant and how they're able to come to our group. So that works out well for us. So you can look for that. Okay, so just to recap, we meet 3 times a month. A doula attends, a mental health care professional attends. We found our mental health care professional through the Fussy Baby Network, and then we have other connections that I first established through PSI. Okay. So that's who's hosting. Before I go on about talking about the outline of the group, another thing that I want to talk about that's really important is caring for yourself. So most of the time, the group is pretty light and it doesn't get too heavy. Sometimes it gets heavy. And we have to leave that group and be able to process that information. It's confidential, so we can't go like dump it anywhere. So what we do is we have a monthly meeting with all of us that are coordinating the group, which gives us the opportunity to meet and discuss what's been happening in the group. Sometimes we're just talking about logistics, about like what's working, what's not working, and we're talking about attendance and things like that. Sometimes we really need to decompress. After a group that has been a little intense, we also can call one another. And then the therapists that are involved have made themselves available to us as well, to the doulas, because where they have training and they have more experience in separating these persons' experiences from their own personal lives, we don't, and we're constantly working on that and learning more and more about how to have this experience and then step forward from it and enter our life without carrying this with us and setting boundaries and things like that. So that becomes really important. So we meet once a month to do that. So I would consider this like self-care. It's also going to add to the group sustainability and your ability to continue hosting the group, so it's not something that just starts and then sort of falls apart. So when we meet 3 times a month, I don't know that I would recommend that somebody kind of take that off, take that big bite right away, because it needs to work for you, and it's more important that it's stable and continues going than it meets frequently. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so in learning about this, to start a group, I recommend that you have some greater understanding of postpartum. So I'm going to share my screen with you again really quick and show you some resources that I think are good for that. All right, let's see. And we're shared. Okay, so I went over 2020 Mom Project. This is Postpartum Progress. Postpartum Progress is another really great place. Postpartum Progress has a blog that is hosted by moms, which is really great. And one of the bloggers is actually in my area. So I think that's really cool. I think that the mom-to-mom component is super important, and so that's here. They can also, of course, look for other things. They use the term warrior mom to describe moms who have suffered from a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. And so you can actually, there's a conference, there's a lot of things going on. Cotton Babies just became a big sponsor, so that's huge to have a large corporate sponsor. So Postpartum Progress is there. Postpartum Progress is also a promotional sponsor of 2020 Mom, and so am I. So that's cool. Okay. PSI, again, this is a great place for resources, but I want to show you another part of this. If you go to their resources page, they have a PSI bookstore, which is really good. There's also an educational DVD. You can order brochures and stuff like that. But in the bookstore, there are a lot of books here. So I would like you to think of the books in two different categories. So I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. But so there are some books. Another place I really love is Preclaris Press, and I might be pronouncing that wrong. This is owned by Kathleen Kendall Tackett, who's an incredible woman who's done a lot for breastfeeding and also a lot for postpartum. I feel like her publishing company gets a lot of books published that wouldn't otherwise be published. So she has a number. Here's one about breastfeeding and postpartum depression. Huge. Because so often women who are suffering from a postpartum anxiety or depression, they're encouraged to stop breastfeeding because they're told they need to sleep more. And we know that if a woman does not succeed at breastfeeding, that her risk of a perinatal mood or anxiety disorder drastically increases. And so it's important that if she wants to breastfeed, that she's able to continue doing so. A Mother's Climb Out of Darkness is a personal story. And then right here, we have Community Support for New Families, right there. This is actually a book about how to do this, about how to start postpartum support in your area. So I think that's really cool. There's actually a whole book about this. So I recommend checking out those. Okay, so I'm going to come back to you all. Okay, so those are some of the books that I recommend. Let's see. It looks like okay. So I want you to think about those books to separate them kind of into two categories. As books that will help you understand the postpartum experience, particularly if you've never experienced postpartum or if you've never experienced a perinatal mood or anxiety disorder. Because if you have some personal experience, you're probably a little bit more empathetic to other people's experiences. And it's important to understand that there are a variety of experiences and a variety of ways to cope with and handle those. And so not to place judgment anywhere. So the more we hear different people's experiences, the more we understand how they've walked that path and what they did, then the more we'll be able to listen without judgment. So then the other kind of category of books is going to be books on sort of the clinical side of it, except for we're not going to go super clinical, but understanding just the terminology and what it means, and things like understanding that people with a previous history of anxiety have a greater risk, and that postpartum depression isn't depression at all, but anxiety. And so understanding these types of things, and the more that you understand about this, the more you're going to understand that when you have those conversations with your doula clients at your postpartum appointments, you're going to hear things that they say in a different light and be able to, you know what, that sounds a little bit outside of the realm of normal to me. It just makes me a little concerned, and maybe everything is totally fine, but I would love to, I would love for you to make this other contact. And maybe this person tells you that nothing is wrong and that you're totally fine. But it might be helpful. And so you can hear that because the more that you have an understanding of these things, you'll be more comfortable asking someone prenatally if they have a history of anxiety or history of depression or if there's anything in their family. Once you ask the question, people are usually comfortable answering it. They're not comfortable bringing it up necessarily. But if you're comfortable with it, then you make it okay and you make it safe. So the book's kind of in two categories, understanding experiences and then books for resources. And those are resources then that you can give to the moms, or to fathers even. If you look at the PSI website, there are books for fathers, which I think is really great. And of course, men too experience postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. We don't have a really great understanding of their experience, and the support for them is really limited. So at our meetings, currently, we don't allow fathers. I've definitely talked with people who are leading other groups around the country who allow fathers to attend. We don't right now. I would love to start a group for fathers. I don't feel qualified to lead it. I feel like it needs to be a guy leading it. So I'm kind of working on that, looking at some different avenues, but I don't have it up and running yet. Okay, so I'm going to unmute and see if there's any questions before I get to kind of the nuts and bolts of like how I'm doing this. Or I could check. Are y'all able to use the Q&A? Let's see. Yes, okay, I see Melissa asked if she had a question. She can ask it here. Okay. Okay, there's a few people are on that their cameras aren't functioning, so. Okay, let's see. I'm going to unmute you guys that are here. And if I can. Or you can unmute yourselves maybe. Can you try unmuting yourselves? Okay, Lori, I got you. Okay, yeah. Are you able to follow so far? Do you have any questions?
Yep. I don't have any yet. I'm just looking it up.
Okay, super. Okay, but it's been clear, like it wasn't too confusing switching the screen and stuff. It's okay?
No, it's good.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to check in. I'm not used to talking and only hearing myself for so long. I do this better conversationally. Okay, so I'm going to leave y'all on for right now. I'm going to go over like the outline of the group. And so one of the things that we discovered is that the difference between a social group and a support group and a clinical group. So it's important that we always share with the people who attend that we are not therapy. So we always open the group the same way. We welcome to say hi, we welcome them. We tell them what we are, that this is mom-to-mom support, that we are not therapy, but we can certainly help them find therapy should they decide they need it. That the group is confidential. There's to be no mention of who attended the group outside of the group, and no mention of any details shared. And this really helps to make everybody feel safe, because they might know each other in other settings, and some of your doula clients might attend, and this is something that we struggle with, where like if three people that I have doulaed for of attending, and then like one person shows up who doesn't know any of us and who just came because they saw a bookmark or a flyer or whatever, then we have to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and that the doula clients aren't, that the person who doesn't know us isn't walking into a situation where everybody knows one another. So we always start with what the group is, what we're doing, and then introductions. And so I introduce myself first, and then we just go around the circle. And we all introduce ourselves as if we don't know each other. People do sign into our group. Fussy Baby needs some stuff for their statistics, and I like to be able to contact people and have them on our email list. They can certainly opt out. So they have the option of just like including that they came and sharing the information that Fussy Baby needs, which is pretty limited, but opting out of any further communication. So that's important. Most of them opt in, but sometimes people have different experiences and they might want to opt out. Let's see. I think I left you up, Lori. There we are. Okay. So from there then, so we introduce ourselves. We have a topic, and what we did was we just came up with, I don't even know how many topics we have. Maybe we have like 12 topics or something. And then we labeled them, like we just numbered them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like this. And then we gave each meeting a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then so we just rotate through the topics. And so we throw that out then. We don't announce the topic ahead of time. There's no, promotion of the topic. It's just to help to get the conversation started so that people aren't staring at each other. So topics are things like caring for yourself, balancing motherhood, sleep, postpartum myths, things like that. We just kind of came up with a list of things. Relationships and postpartum, that's always a popular one. People like to talk about like postpartum and sex and how the relationship has changed. That's one. Work, breastfeeding, and a breastfeeding topic, you always want to make sure that you open it up as like infant feeding, because somebody there may not be breastfeeding. And as I mentioned, that can be a huge deal to someone postpartum. So if they're not breastfeeding, we want to make sure that we make that okay. And a safe thing. So from there, this is mom-to-mom communication. So it's really mom-driven. There's always difficulty. We're always learning about how to balance the group. But like sometimes somebody shows up and they share a lot and they talk a lot, and we're a little worried about the person who's not talking. We have to be comfortable with silence, because silence doesn't mean like boredom or disconnect. It sometimes is just the person formulating what they want to say. And if you jump in and cover the silence, then they don't have the opportunity to say the thing it is that they're trying to say, that they're just working on how to get out. So we don't give advice. We can share experiences. I can share experiences as a mom. For example, if it's me and one or two other people that show up, I am more likely to share my experiences as a mother. If there's more people there, then I'm more likely to be quiet and to sit back and allow the group to happen, because ultimately I'm there as a facilitator. So my job is to keep a conversation moving and to keep it safe. So advice giving can come up. Like if somebody's providing a lot of advice, then you might have to help just, I'm really glad that worked for you. Has anyone else had any other things that have worked for them? And just sort of making that safe for everybody, so that people aren't sort of bombarded with that. And it's just a matter of really listening to the conversation and seeing it from the perspective of all of the people that are there and being aware of how it goes. From there, then, we need to close the meeting. So we close the meeting the same way every time. And we say, well, our time is up. And thank everybody for coming. And we go around the group and we say one thing that we're going to do for ourselves. Because we really want to promote self-care and make sure everyone's taking care of themselves. This can be something so small, and we do it too. So I might say that, my self-care is that I'm going to, leave my laptop downstairs and not work until midnight. Turn on the television at 10 p.m. or pick up a book that's not birth-related. For a new mom, it could be taking a shower. Like, that's self-care. That's real self-care. She's going to brush her teeth before noon. It doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be something. So everybody kind of goes around the room and shares something that they're going to do. We thank them for coming, and we leave the group. Every now and then, if something was kind of intense, like I mentioned, we might call each other. We might also kind of linger with Anna, who is the therapist who usually attends. Just a debrief with her before we go home, in case something kind of big came up. If something big does come up, and let's say somebody there is having a particularly difficult time, and the other people attending the group seem to be, having maybe like a more normal postpartum experience within the realm of normal, not within the realm of like a mental health issue, making it safe for everybody can be challenging. This is where having the therapist there who has experience they actually have experience in leading clinical groups, so they can really help you with this and can speak up and help facilitate the group at that time. And we're always learning how to do this better. Okay, so that's really how, I guess the only thing else I didn't cover really is where we host our groups, which is also a factor in our attendance. So let me tell you that. So we host 3 groups a month, and we host them in different places because New Orleans is a small town that's a big city that people don't like to cross different parts of the city. So what we do is we host one in one area, and there's a baby boutique, an actual parenting boutique that has space, and they have the woman that owns it. She really values community resources, so she allows us to meet there. And then we also have a relationship with her. My company has a relationship with her company. So we meet once uptown at her store uptown, which is one area of New Orleans, and then in a suburb, we actually lease space there. We have a mothering lounge there, and so we meet in that space once a month. So we're meeting in the suburb. And then we meet in another area of New Orleans that's kind of in between those two spots. We meet there once a month. 2 of the meetings are in the evening, and 1 of the meetings is in the morning. And we did it that way intentionally so that we can make ourselves available to more women and what they're going on postpartum. So once a mom returns to work, we want to have that evening meeting available, but also the morning meeting for a mom who hasn't returned to work and needs the evening to connect with her partner or whatever is going on. So we have different times. We did start out originally with the evening meetings because that was the easiest for us. We chose the day of the week that was easiest for us. So we're definitely making it work within our time frame and our schedules as much as we can to make it sustainable and something that we can continue on. Okay.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
How do you go about accommodating like the babies, other kids, and things like that?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so to this point, we have only allowed nurslings. So people could bring nurslings. Bringing older children, I don't want to put an age limit of like a cognitive age. Everyone needs to feel safe. A woman might need to say something scary. Like, she might be thinking about throwing her baby against the wall. And something kind of interesting to note is that thoughts about harming your baby are actually within the realm of normal. Creating a plan is out of the realm of normal. So these are things that women think that are normal, and they need to be able to share them. And they may not feel comfortable sharing it with a 5-year-old present. Because that child can understand and may ask questions. We're entering a new space, and in that space, it's a bigger room, and there's kind of a play area for a toddler, where I think we'll be able to open that meeting up a little bit beyond nurslings, but I would still take it on a case-by-case basis, and I still definitely don't want older children there that are at a cognitive age, because it needs to be a safe place for everybody. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. But any baby that is, and I guess I say nursling, but any baby that is just a small baby is welcome to come. They just don't understand what we say, so it's okay. We haven't had babies be disruptive or anything like that. Women feed their babies, breastfeed their babies, comfort their babies in the group all the time, and it's totally fine. They play on the floor with toys or whatever, and it hasn't been disruptive. It hasn't been a problem for us. We definitely also have had women come without their babies that leave them at home. The group is an hour long, and since it's dismissed right at an hour, it's something that they can plan for, so they can feed their baby before they leave if they're breastfeeding and know that they'll be home in time to nurse again. Okay. Any further? Do you have any more questions? All right. Let's see. Y'all are muted. Is this helpful? Is this something that you think you could do in your area?
I think so. Our main problem is getting people involved and the ones who want to be involved having enough time to actually do it.
Right. So a shared load is really important. I want to show you something that we do. So, like I said, I really think the way that we make this safe and okay for everybody is that we talk about it more. So all of our clients get these bookmarks. It's two-sided. So let's see. On the front of the bookmark, it just kind of has us, and then it has like our meeting days and times. And this one actually needs the 3rd meeting added to it. This little baby at the bottom is from the Fussy Baby logo. That has our website. On the back side, I have the 2020 Mom Project logo. And then I have breastfeeding resources and postpartum resources. So when I started out with this bookmark, I listed like any breastfeeding postpartum resource I could come up with, and now I've really narrowed it down to where it is absolutely my favorite breastfeeding and postpartum resources locally, like who they can call. So all of our clients get this. One of the breastfeeding resources is a local pediatrician, so that's helpful if you can find something like that, because their insurance will cover it. So that's nice. And then I have a couple of hospitals on here that have good lactation support, and then postpartum support. Fussy Baby has a warm line, so we refer to that warm line, and PSI has a warm line. So if you don't have like a local warm line in your area, you could always list like PSI as a resource, because they have a warm line. So even if you don't have a whole lot of resources in your area, you can actually find more. And then the more that I've done this, the more resources I have, because then people learn about us doing it and they want to be involved. We give these cards to healthcare providers. Healthcare providers that they may not have like our advertisement cards for our company in there necessarily, because like some of the hospitals have rules about that, but they are so eager to have these bookmarks with the postpartum resources, because they don't know. And a woman goes in for her 6-week OB visit or her pediatrician visits, and those are the days that she's going to have it all together, and she's not likely to talk about it. And if she does bring up how she's feeling, they don't necessarily know who to refer her to. So I actually think we have a lot more knowledge and a lot more insight to that than most of the healthcare providers do, because we've made it our mission, and so we end up being this kind of middleman. And I do get emails just for references, and and providers call me and ask for these cards. I've had 2 calls in the last couple of weeks that have just been like, hey, we're out of bookmarks, we're out of cards, can you bring more in? And this is what they want. So that really helps. Okay, so we got started a little bit late, but it's 9, so I'm just going to open up to questions once more, and then I'm going to tell you all good night. Any questions? I'm going to check the Q&A.
No, I think I'm okay. I'm going to go check out some of the resources you listed and see if there's crossover in Canada with some of them. I think there are with a few of them.
Okay. Oh, that's a great point.
And then, but use it as a starting ground to really, I have some resources set aside, but really kind of focus on it again.
Yeah. In Canada, with your healthcare system, what does that look like for mental health care and for postpartum mental health care?
It depends. We have a lot. There's the public health nurses that are usually checking. Mm-hmm. I know in my former area, for both of my children, we had the quiz to do when it was time to take the kids in for their more along their vaccination schedules is what they base it on. Okay. So if you're going on a modified schedule, that's a place where you'd probably be missing.
Oh, right, because you don't see them as frequently.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where most of that is based on.
Okay, cool. So PSI is Postpartum Support International.
Yes.
I've met most of the board because they met in New Orleans this year, and I got invited to visit with them. And so they're in the States, but I think their goal really is like international support, and so there's probably providers listed for other areas. So hopefully that would help in Canada. 2020 Moms is definitely out of California, and because their goals are with like healthcare, their goals are really focused on how our healthcare system works and how it's broken. But for education, there's still a lot of great education there. So even if there was somebody in your area and maybe works a little different with their education hours or whatever. Like if they're genuinely interested in furthering their understanding, they could still participate in that, in those workshops and things.
Yeah.
So, and I bet they'd be thrilled to have some Canadians present. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at amanda@nolanesting.com, or I'm on lots of social media outlets. You can find me on Love What You Doula, which is a Facebook group, and feel free to tag me, email me, message me questions. I'm happy to support anyone in doing this. It's just sort of something I think is super important, and I'm absolutely thrilled that anyone is interested in doing in their area. I hope it works out for you. If people don't attend your meetings, please don't think that you're failing. When I met with the board for Postpartum Support International, and many of those women are hosting meetings in their areas, and one of them actually started a nonprofit just for this cause, which is amazing, and they host meetings, and people don't show up. And it's because we need to talk about it more. And the more of us that are out there talking about it, then the more likely people are going to show up to the meetings. But when people do show up, they really need it. So we got to show up for them, even if they're not there every time. So don't think that you're failing and that you need to quit.
Somebody just asked, how long do women usually attend? I mean, do you see people coming like only for the first, couple months, or like years, or what?
That's really a great question. So sometimes we only see someone once. Sometimes we see someone and they pop up again 2 months later. It happens usually by the time that their baby is like a year and a half old or something. We're not really seeing them as much anymore. Some of them, though, have really found it as a source of community, and they'll continue coming. We invite anyone. We are always postpartum. I mean, you have a baby and the rest of your life you're postpartum. So we invite them to come whenever. Of course, we're learning more about how long the postpartum mental health experience can extend. It used to be thought that this would wrap up earlier, but we're seeing it now. It actually extends much longer and can show up later than we thought. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see a woman, pop up with a 7-month-old. That I wouldn't blink an eye at it. Also, women who have experienced postpartum mood and anxiety disorders, they may have a lot of concerns when they're planning to get pregnant again. And Precarious Press, they have a book about that. It's a really great reference. And so they might start attending again when they have a 2-year-old, but they're considering pregnancy, and they're really concerned about what their postpartum experience might look like and how they can best prepare for that. I also encourage moms to start coming when they're pregnant. That's my preference. With breastfeeding too. I like them to see them in these meetings when they're pregnant. That's a hard sell because they don't get it yet. They have no idea. Like they have no idea.
The community's already there.
Right. That's what I want for them. That is my dream, is for them to come when they're pregnant. They already have the community. Then here they are postpartum, and they are set up and ready to go, and it's not scary, and we're there to support them, and they know that. But it's a hard sell because when they're pregnant, breastfeeding is going to be easy because it's natural, right? So breastfeeding is super easy, and they're going to sleep all night because their baby's going to sleep, and they're going to be fine, and they're going to be happy, and their baby's not going to poop either. The idea of what postpartum looks like and in our heads before we're there and what it really looks like is so different. So, but to answer the question, how long do women come? It really depends. I mean, we've definitely had some people that have, so we've been doing the group since, it started January of 2015, so we're about a year and a half out, and we definitely have a person who's been attending for most of that time. And I will say, too, that I did start a group before this one that wasn't as successful. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. It didn't have the same connections, and I didn't have the same platform to raise it up from. So I didn't have the same voice in the community as I do now, and I didn't make the same connections. So I think those are really crucial parts. Okay, that's a good.
There we go. I was going to say, do you also see, maybe not immediately immediate postpartum women, or you know, like grandmothers or things like that coming for support or to offer support or ask questions or things like that? I mean, people maybe who aren't the person having the concerns themselves even.
Yeah. So when I do postpartum visits, oftentimes like other family members are there. The bookmarks that we have always make sure that the dads know about it and that they understand that they can make this referral too, that they don't have to be alone with this. And then, we haven't had, I'm trying to think, and then in the meetings that I've hosted, which would be a third of them right now, I haven't had extended family members come. I would certainly welcome them. Particularly a mother, because she has been postpartum before, and so she would be included in the group anyway. But I don't know about the other meetings. It hasn't come up in our monthly meeting where we meet, the coordinators meet. It hasn't come up, so I can't say for certain that someone has or hasn't attended. But I would welcome them. I would have hesitations about a male joining. So, and as I said, I really wish I had a group for them. I'm working on it. Oh, let's see. Okay. Somebody asked about Emily asked about husbands and partners. Yeah. So I think I answered that question. About partners attending, so we don't allow them to attend. So the question is, would you be open to having husbands or partners attend as well? Postpartum mood disorders can affect the whole family, and having a place to talk about it for partners would be helpful too. At the same time, moms might find it harder to open up. So that's just it. This is mom-to-mom support. We've created a mom-to-mom community, and that's what's working for us. If men are present, it can limit the conversation for the women, but certainly this is also an issue for the entire family, and I would definitely suggest anyone who is seeking professional help for a postpartum mood or anxiety disorder that they also be like in a relationship counseling situation, whether it's their mother that they live with or their partner or whatever, that person also engage in counseling with them, because it definitely affects the whole family. And because there's so much misunderstanding about what the postpartum experience looks like, that if the other family members that the person is living with don't understand the experience, there can certainly be a lot of judgment, and it can be very hard because they just don't understand why the person isn't happy that they have and giggly about their baby. They just don't understand. So, okay, so that was one of the questions asked. Okay, so I'm going to give one more second for any further questions, and then we're going to go. Okay, so thank you all for being on here, and as I mentioned, you can find me at amanda@nolanesting.com. You can find me on Facebook and the Facebook group Love What You Doula, which I encourage you all to join if you're not in there. And other social media outlets, Google+, of course. And I'll answer any emails or messages I get. I'm happy to give out my phone number if you want to chat. Okay? Everybody have a good night. Let me know how your groups go. Yeah, of course.